Hello and welcome to the Jackcast, your Swansea City podcast. I'm your host, Steve Carroll, and joining me this week is John Russ. Evening, John.
Evening. Thanks for having me back.
It's a pleasure as always. Bumper edition podcast for you tonight because we didn't do one last week, and a lot has happened since then. So obviously we played our first game of the season at Middlesbrough. There's the Crawley game, Sheffield United, transfers, which is always good to talk about when we have done some business, potential outgoings, fans forum, and we've got a few games then to preview as well. So we won't waste any time. We'll get straight into it. John, I'll come to you with Middlesbrough because I didn't go and I know that you did, so I can't pass a huge amount of comment on it. I don't think we should spend too long talking about it because it didn't sound great to me. But yeah, a 1-0 loss sounded like quite a poor, uneventful game, and obviously we got undone by a soft set piece, really, didn't we?
Yeah, it was a bleak game of football, I think is the right word. Didn't love the selection. So you had Fulton obviously in the six. Sorry. Apologies. Didn't love the selection. Obviously the new lads are on the bench. And we just seem to be happy playing it into channels. We did okay in the first half. I thought we probably edged it without ever threatening too much. And then after we conceded the goal, there was just nothing. No shots, no pressure. I didn't love the subs either. Didn't really make sense to me why you take Galbraith off, who I think should have moved into that sixth position. Ronaldo's our best player on the day. We usually can play 90 minutes. So it just didn't really make sense. I think I think I saw a tweet where somebody said it felt like we were content to lose the game 1-0. Obviously we weren't, but that's a good description of how poor the performance was. That's the only way to describe it. And the most frustrating thing is Middlesbrough were not good. They were not good. They did not play well. So yeah, really disappointing start of the season, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I do feel for the likes of you who went up there because I mean it's hell of a way, to go on a journey like that for the second year running. Obviously we've had Middlesbrough at the start of the season, and yeah, I mean the score is exactly the same, and last year was quite miserable as well, wasn't it? So I think we certainly don't want to have Middlesbrough again on the opening day next year, do we?
I think if that happens, the Football League need to do a redraw or press the button that does the fixtures again. Good weekend in Newcastle always, so all is not lost. But yeah, it just seems a ground that we rarely do very well at. That 4-3 under Brenda maybe, but yeah, just just disappointing that it felt like that the game was there for us with maybe a more proactive and positive approach. So yeah, disappointing afternoon all round.
Yeah, it sounded it. I mean, as you say, Middlesbrough not a happy hunting ground for us. I mean, the 4-3 stands out in 2011, but the only other win I can remember, or even point, I think, was the first game during the lockdown, which sums it up really, because I think during that time we did see quite a few strange results, should we say? So you can't probably, it's not the proper Middlesbrough experience, is it? So yeah, glad that that is out of the way. I think that's probably the best way for us to look at it, isn't it? Obviously we played Crawley then in the League Cup. We all seem to get drawn at home in the League Cup, don't we? And we didn't have long to wait for a first goal of the season. And I think obviously Ronaldo's the man that scored it and added in a terrible celebration, which I'm sure we'll discuss again later. But the cross from Josh Tymon is what I wanted to discuss, really. I mean, it was ridiculously good, wasn't it?
I mean, it's the consistency of Josh Tynham is something to be celebrated. Just probably one of the best fullbacks going forward in the division, and I don't think I'm underestimating this. He could have had 5 assists. The amount of quality service he's put into the box is ridiculous. That second one that Ronaldo put wide, I mean, it was almost exactly the same as the first goal. So he is, I think, our most important player in many respects because if we didn't have him, we would lose such a massive creative output. I don't think I'm being too dramatic saying that, am I?
No, I don't think you are either. And obviously, we've got to remember as well that if he doesn't play, who does play in that position? And then you'd lose a hell of a lot going forward. But not only that, you probably have somebody that is uncomfortable in that position defensively. So right now, he's incredibly important, isn't he?
Yeah, I think that I will talk transfers later. That does feel like something we need to address. I know Sam Parker played well on the other side, so I know there's been some debate, I guess, on what his position is. To me, he looks like a fullback, and I think it does feel like he's being lined up as the alternative or backup for Josh Key this year. I hope that's the case. I know Ethan Galbraith can play at fullback, but I've seen enough of Ethan already to say that would be a waste to me. So I think we're sorted at right back, but yeah, that left back position is something we need to strengthen him. But talking of Galbraith, I know it's only Crawley and it's lower league opposition, but how good was he?
Oh, he was again, wasn't he? I mean, he was. He has been a standout player for us so far. I mean, the season's only a few games old, but he was exceptional, and he capped it with an absolutely brilliant goal as well at the end. Didn't he? I mean, he looks like a real find, doesn't he, from Leighton Orient, really? And I'm sure we'll come on to. We have got a lot of options in there now, but I mean, he's got to play, isn't he? I mean, we don't want him, as you say, being farmed into right back unless we've got some sort of injury crisis, really. I mean, he should definitely be a starter for us, shouldn't he?
Yeah, and the thing with when he played right back for Leighton Orient, I watched a few of their games last season. He was playing an inverted fullback role, which we're very familiar with here because Josh Key did this last season under Luke Williams. Now, Josh Key wasn't good enough to do that. You have to be an exceptional talent to be able to do it, to go into those midfield positions and do the usual fullback stuff of the possession. I can't see Alan Sheehan doing inverted fullbacks. So I don't, I'm not even convinced I'm sure he would do a good job, but I don't think he'd be as effective because it's a totally different game plan. What I love about him is he just seems to make the right decision every time. And, he brings a calmness to the chaos. A little bit of Leon Britton about him, not exactly the same, but kind of always available, always take the right touch, and can play six, can play eight. Just really excited about him, and he topped off his performance with a really good goal as well. Keeper maybe could have died for it, but it was a great finish to control it.
Yeah, it was when and I think obviously at that point we were probably a little bit concerned, weren't we? Because we were only a goal up. Andy Fisher didn't look hugely convincing, which is the least shocking thing I'll probably ever say on this podcast. But yeah, we sort of needed that to make sure, really, didn't we? And it was a brilliant way to seal it. I mean, the second goal came from Bobby Wales, didn't it? Great for him on his what would be a competitive home debut. And I got to be honest, he did show more than what Vipotnik did. I mean, Vipotnik again looked to me a bit like a statue who didn't really want to move. There was that one chance, wasn't there, in the first half, where the ball goes across the box and he's too slow to react. And I was looking at him thinking, well, I think Cullen would have probably scored because he would have been alert to the situation and slid in, even though he was obviously he's shorter than Vipotnik. But I mean, for me, Wales did show something really. I mean, I don't think we're going to be expecting huge things from him at this stage, but I'd probably put him above Vipotnik, and obviously on Saturday he was the one that came on right at the end, and Vipotnik stayed on the bench, didn't he?
Yeah, I think you say it's only Crawley, but comparing him to Putnik in this game is a good benchmark because it's the same opposition for both players. Like I was still holding out some hope for Putnik towards the end of last season. It did feel like he had a decent spell when the manager changed, but I've lost that optimism. I don't think he's got the instincts for the game. Feels like everything is half a second too late. He jumps a little bit too late, or everything's just a little bit off. Whereas when that's the first time I've seen Bobby Wales play, it's the complete opposite. He won the flick ons, his touch was good. Yes, his goal was a little bit scruffy, but I don't mind those type of goals. He's there, he's got the ball, he's turned and he's had a shot. The good thing is we haven't got to put too much pressure on him, hopefully, this season. but an exciting player nonetheless. But for Putnick, I don't know where he really goes from here. I mean, you just said it there, mate. You're already putting Bobby Wales ahead of him, and I'd agree with you. He shouldn't be really, should he? Based off the two career paths, but I don't think we've got any choice at this stage. I think he's definitely second choice.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, based on what they've done in their career so far, you'd have thought Vipotnik would be in front, but we're talking based on what we're seeing, and yeah, it's hard to argue. I mean, and I'd be thinking certainly with the upcoming game with Plymouth, which we'll discuss later, that I'd like Wales to start it rather than Vipotnik. So that probably says a lot as well, really, doesn't it? But yeah, I've jumped the gun slightly there because we will be playing Plymouth in the next round as a result of that win. But we'll come on to that later. First of all, we're going to talk about the Sheffield United game, which was on Saturday. I mean, a tough game on that's what it looked like. Sheffield United obviously should really have won the playoff final last season, were comfortably the better side in it until they conceded with a few minutes to go and then ended up conceding again. And then last week they lost 4-1 at home to Bristol City, which nobody would have expected, especially considering that that was the same team that they beat comfortably in the playoff semi-final. I mean, so yeah, they came down to South Wales, and for me, we were well worth our win, really. I mean, we were the better side. It was an encouraging performance. The only criticism I've probably got is that in the last third, sometimes our decision making or our finishing wasn't as good as I would have liked it to have been. But there were certainly a lot of positives to take from Saturday, weren't there?
Yeah, I think not to take anything away from us, it was probably a good time to play them. There does seem a bit of ill feeling there. A lot of players have left. Not many have come in. I don't think they've really settled defensively. A new manager, obviously, so I think Wilder's really popular there, so it's always going to be hard to follow him. I'm not convinced Ruben Sellers is a good fit for Sheffield United, but that remains to be seen. That being said, it's still a really talented team. Callum O'Hare, Gustavo Hamer, Tyrese Campbell, Louis Barry. I mean, go on. It's still a really good side, and we did control that game from start to finish. And to come back to what I said about the Middlesbrough selection, I feel like this game kind of proved my point. We just looked a bit more balanced than me with Galbraith playing in the six. Yalkui had obviously come in. It just felt like it was a lot more fluid. Everyone looked a bit more comfortable. And we were actually able to get on the ball and get into decent positions.
Yeah, it did, didn't it? I mean, Yalkoué is a good place to start, really. I mean, we've missed that ball carrying midfield player for a little while, haven't we? I'm not saying he's going to necessarily be that player for us, but at the same time, I do think it's a string to his bow. I mean, you look at the chance we had in the first half where he broke forward, put a nice ball into the box, and in the end, Ronaldo didn't score from it. But we haven't really had a player like that in the middle of the park for a while, have we? And that was, for me, something I saw that encouraged me a lot. And it feels like sometimes we have just been that a little bit too safe, and he just showed his how quick he can be, decided to drive forward, and it ended up creating a chance that probably should have been a goal, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I think that the last player I can think of who had ball carrying abilities in midfield is Encharm, but obviously totally different physically, much bigger, much stronger. But I think we misused Encharm. Like we used to play him in that we had that wing back system with a box in midfield, and he'd play kind of left attacking midfield. I'd never thought that suited him. When Russell Martin changed it to a more 4-3-3, and he started to play in a deeper kind of left midfield role where he was getting the ball in a deeper area, we saw better performances from him. So, and that's the kind of role that Yokoya was playing on Saturday, and we do need that type of player. It could be a really lethal combination for us on the left hand side if he can open up space, start linking with Josh Tynham, obviously we talked about earlier. I thought on that chance, I think he tried a shot initially when I might be wrong. I'm sure he tried a shot when I think he could have just played it, but he did make a big impression. But the whole midfield balance looked better. I mean, Franco didn't have a good game against Middlesbrough, but I thought he was really good here and got much better. Felt like he was last 10 minutes of the game was our best player, which is good to see. His second season, maybe taking on more of a leadership role, helping us see that game out.
Yeah, it was. I never really felt we were in a lot of trouble, to be
No.
honest. I mean, they pushed us a little bit, didn't they, later on? But there weren't any real like big chances. We were more than worth that win, weren't we? And like I say, it did feel like quite a reasonable improvement, which is really encouraging. And I think a big thing for me as well was just looking at the bench and thinking, for the first time in a while, there were people on there that could come on and make a difference. I didn't think Eom had a great game, for example, but there were players there, weren't there, that could come on and actually impact the game. Whereas before you were thinking our main starters, if they're not firing on all cylinders, you don't really want to take them off because you know that the next player that come on isn't really going to offer a lot. So it feels like we're building a bit of a squad now, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, two things there. It's only two games, so it's too early to draw any big conclusions. But across those two games, we've only given up, I think, 0.9 XG, which is the second best in the division. Like if that holds, so we basically haven't given up any chances apart from that set piece goal. The only save Vigouroux had to make is that long ranger from Whittaker. If that holds, we'll do quite well because we just won't concede goals. Obviously, remains to be seen how effective we are going forward. So that's an encouraging start on that front. But yeah, Vidal and Anusa, I thought, were brought on at the perfect time. Again, I criticised Shane for his subs at Middlesbrough. These ones, I think he got right. It was good to see them kind of just brought on early while the game's at 0-0 and given a chance to influence it. I thought Vidal showed some really good stuff. Physically, I think he will need a bit of time to grow. There was a couple of battles I think he lost, but he looked really good linking up. But I really like the look of Anusa. I thought he did really well. Obviously, he was involved in the goal, but I completely agree with you. It's for the first time in a while. You're looking at that bench going, we could change it here. I think Anusa probably deserves to start now. Would you be with me on that? I think he didn't have a full preseason, so I've got a bit of sympathy for him, but I think Anusa should be in now.
Yeah, I think I'm with you really. Anusa was always bought to start. I think I don't think there was any real doubt about that. I think obviously quite a reasonable transfer fee was spent on him, but hefty by our recent history, certainly. So I would like to see him come into the team. I mean, I thought he had a decent game against Crawley, and as you say, I think the fact is really that because he has had that injury, I think that's likely the reason why he hasn't been starting. But I think he will be in now. I mean, certainly from my point of view, if you're going to look at what our strongest team is, he's probably in it. So I would like to see him start. I think it's just a case of, well, how do we play it? Do we maybe look to give him 60 minutes this coming weekend? And then he would sit out the League Cup game, I would guess, and then maybe try and build himself up a little bit more then against Sheffield Wednesday the week after. So it is just about trying to manage that, I think, as well, isn't it? But yeah, I would like to see him come into the team. And as I say, I think Guillaume didn't have a great game, so that would be an obvious candidate really then for him to replace. But look, there's a lot of games to come this season, so players will get a chance. And like I say, the good thing is now it does feel like if and when we need to make changes, maybe there is going to be a bit more depth there, and it won't weaken the side as much as it has before. But since we did the last podcast, we have brought in two new signings. We've already mentioned one of them, and that is Malik Yalkoué from Brighton. Played in the Champions League last season. Believe he had a man of the match performance against Dortmund while he was playing for Sturm Graz. So sounds like a good signing, and obviously we saw some really positive signs from him on the weekend. Only 19, so a real prospect. Brighton seem to rate him very highly. The impression I get is that in a year's time, if somebody gets sold, like maybe Carlos Baleba to Man United, he could be the replacement. So that says a lot for what they're thinking. And then finally, earlier on today, we had confirmation that Marco Stamenic has come in from Nottingham Forest. So a real embarrassment of riches in centre midfield now, isn't it? I mean, it's going to be, if you think of those two I've just named, and then we're talking about Galbraith, who we've already talked up, and Franco, obviously, they can't all play, can they? I mean, we don't play like with a a Russell Martin wing-back system and a box midfield. So only three of them can play, really. I mean, there's some real competition for places there. I can't remember the last time that we were talking about an area of the pitch where it was that intense. And to be honest, you could argue any of them would be looking to play, and it'd be harsh on whoever's dropped, you would think, based on, I know we haven't seen a huge amount of Yalkoué yet, and obviously Stamenic we haven't seen, but they're so highly rated. They've not, and none of them are going to be happy on the bench, are they?
No, but I think it's a refreshing change. The last couple of years, it's been a big problem in midfield where we get one player out and the quality of the side just drops completely. I think we saw it quite a bit last year when Franco couldn't play in those 3 game weeks. Um, I'm all for this. Yeah, it can be difficult because I essentially see it as we've got five for three positions. But, there are 46 games plus the cup games. There's how many? I don't know how many midweek games there are, but there's quite a few. The Christmas period, injuries, suspensions, form. There's plenty to go around. I think it looks like we're planning to play quite an intense, high pressure, high energy style of football. So it's good to have fresh options to rotate and bring off the bench. Competition for places is always really good. And I think the exciting thing about it, obviously, we don't know how good these new lads are going to be. So I say it with that in mind, is we've got a nice mix of profiles in there. So the one thing we will lack in probably is a big physical body, which Stanovic obviously offers. But we've got a ball carrier in Yakuri. We've got a kind of off the ball player in Franco. I think Gilbreth can basically do everything. And then Vidal, I think he's more of an 8 than a 10, but maybe offers more of a goal threat. So we just got a nice balance. It might be a bit of horses for courses, really. It might be. I was thinking about this earlier. If we're playing a weaker team at home, maybe we know we're going to play defensively. That's a Gilbreth, Vidal, Yalkoué type lineup. Or if we're playing one of the bigger sides away, maybe that's when you want Stamenic and Franco in there. There's no reason why we can't do that. And it might be that as we get into the season, a first choice three emerges from what we see on the pitch. But right now, it's just exciting to see, isn't it? Like I can't remember the last time we had this depth.
Yeah, someone tweeted me actually earlier, and because I put it out there, we got an embarrassment of riches, and the reply said it's probably looking back to around the time we were in the Europa League where we had Leon, De Guzman, Key, Shelvey, Canas, Pablo obviously went in there for a bit, and Pozuelo, really. I mean, we probably had a little bit more depth there, certainly had more quality, I know, but we're talking like a long time ago, aren't we, where we were in this situation. So it really is refreshing, isn't it? It's just we do have some other positions now that we do need to look at, isn't it? But I mean, I'm sure you won't disagree that strikers are our main issue right now, isn't it?
Yeah, with all due respect to Liam Cullen, he cannot play a lone striker role. Obviously, he had a good goal scoring season last year, but I think most of his goals came from when he was playing deeper. That's another player who could play a midfield or a midfield role of some kind. So I think you've seen it in these opening 2 games. There's those physical battles, those higher balls. He just can't win them. And I just don't think he's got the presence for it. I think he's a good player to have in the squad, don't get me wrong. But we need a starting quality player here. To me, it has to be somebody with a strong physical presence who can hold the ball up and obviously is able to take chances. I'm not asking for much, I know. Sometimes I feel we waste having Josh Tynham in the squad. It feels like every game there's Tynham deliveries where you think, if there was a Michu in this side of a player like that, they'd score a lot of goals. Am I wrong?
No, like you say, I mean, you look at the ones we've had in the past, Michu, Boni, Lorente, I think they'd be quite happy with that type of delivery. And like I say, it's just Cullen doesn't really have those attributes. I just don't think being up front on his own suits it really. He just gets isolated and finds it hard to get in the game, always works hard, but it just doesn't suit him. Whereas like Vipotnik, as we said earlier, probably does have more of the attributes, but just doesn't really show enough. So it just feels like we need that striker. It's going to be tough to get one because it does feel like at the moment there aren't a huge amount of top strikers out there, even at the higher level. I mean, we're seeing the issues with Alexander Isak, for example, and the reason why Liverpool are so desperate for him is because there aren't a huge amount of other options. And so I think a lot of teams in the top flight are struggling. That's probably knocking on then down to the lower divisions as well. There just is a dearth of amount of strikers, around at the moment. We're going through a phase like that. I'm sure it'll turn again at some point, but you know, every club, as ever, is always looking for a striker, aren't they? So it's difficult, and we might have to pay, a reasonable amount more than what we paid for any player so far to land one, you would think, especially as we get towards the deadline.
Yeah, if you look at the championship, there's been quite a few big purchases for forwards. You know, the 5 to 7 million territory. There's been a couple cheap. I think Coney went for 3 million. I think Charlie Kelman went for around that. It's going to cost money. I think it's a deal that we have to do. Um, but the rest of the squad, I think we'll get onto this. I think maybe we need a left back, maybe another winger, but the striker's just absolutely critical. And I personally would look abroad. I think that seems to be the market. But you're right. There's only most teams in world football play with one striker. So to find one who's at the age profile, the quality, the record, within budget, who wants to come, those type of players are probably going to have multiple clubs. So, but I think this year, Steve, we can have a bit more confidence that they're going to get something done. Don't think I'm wrong to have a little bit of confidence. I'm touching wood here because famous last words, but based off the window so far, I think if this was previous years, we'd be really, really worried. But I do have some optimism that they can and will get this done in time.
Yeah, I think as you say, you have to have confidence based on, we did have a bit of a dry spell, I think, from around the start of July into the start of August, where we didn't get anything done, which was a bit of a shame because we got a lot done before that. But now we've picked it up again. We brought in Keelan Casey, and as we've discussed, Yal Koué and Stamenic have now come in. So, we have been busy in this market. We've brought some players in that from what we've seen so far, look good. And it's obvious that they are targeting a striker. And as you say, I think we should have some optimism that they will get it done. I mean, in recent years, I think we've always been saying, or looking at the squad and going, well, we need this, we need this. And you're like, you just know in the back of your mind that you're not going to get it all and you're going to get left short. Whereas certainly at this moment in time, you have to have faith in this regime that they are going to get it done in the end. I mean, look, there's never a guarantee you're going to get a good player, or maybe sometimes as it gets later on, you might take a chance on somebody and it might not work. You don't know, but the intent certainly is there. And I think if we do take a gamble, it'll be more of a calculated one rather than I look at a couple of years ago where we tried to get Carlon Grant on the deadline for a fortune on loan, and you're just thinking it was obviously not the right thing to do. Whereas I think this one might be a bit more realistic. But I mean, just to wrap up the first part of this of the episode now, I mean, for me, that we must look at it and think we've got a chance of the playoffs. But if we don't get a striker in, it's probably not going to happen, is it? Would you say the same thing, that our chances of playoffs probably do depend on getting in? It doesn't have to necessarily be a top striker, but it's got to be a reasonable one who's better than what we've got at the moment.
Yeah, if we're talking purely in recruitment terms, I think that will kill us. I do have confidence that our defensive side is going to be good. It's like I said, it's early days, but the back four, the keeper, the whole structure defensively looks good. Our home form under Sheehan since he took over has been very strong. I think, correct, you probably correct me if I'm wrong, we've only lost to Burnley since
Yeah,
he
I
was
think you're
since
right.
he
I
took
saw
over.
that the other day, and obviously that was a bad one. But generally, there haven't been many drop points of there. I think we drew with Oxford, obviously. Got a feeling we might have won every other game, which is remarkable, really.
Yeah, that these are the type of things that these are the ingredients, if you like, to for a playoff charge. But that includes a striker. I mean, spine overall. We talked about the midfield. I still have my doubts around Sheehan. I don't want to be critical at this stage of the season, but he was a caretaker manager taking over. That always makes me nervous. But like I said, I'm not going to judge now. But purely in recruitment terms, it does feel like a striker would be the difference. Especially if I said if we are going to be strong defensively, I think what you said is true. We might not need we might not need somebody who's exceptional and scoring 25. We might just need somebody who can make the difference in the big moments, get into the 12, 15 type of range. If you're not conceding goals, that could be the difference. So yeah, I just hope they do get it done, and yeah, I got confidence they will.
Yeah, so have I. So I mean, we should really come on to players now that are likely to maybe leave, or certainly ones that are going to get less game time as a result of our signings. I mean, Jay Fulton springs to mind straight away, doesn't he? I mean, he did start at Middlesbrough, but he's going to find game time really hard now, isn't he? I mean, he is our longest serving player, but his days look numbered, and they probably should be, really, shouldn't they? We've moved on from him now, haven't we?
Yeah, I know there's sometimes some fierce debate about Fulton. I mean, personally, for me, I've never really rated him that much, if at all. And now, when you look at the midfield options, it just there just doesn't seem to be minutes there for him. So many choices to go from. And also from his perspective, I mean, he's getting to the twilight years of his career now. He's only got a year left. Surely he's going to be sitting there going, I need to be playing. He's only got a year left in his deal, so there's no security. It feels like the right time for both parties to move on. Now, I know there'll be some complications with that. Probably on a good wage based off how long he's been here and being a first team player. So maybe we would have to do a deal there and carry some costs, but I think it's right for both parties that he departs. So I mean, where would he play? I can't think of a role outside of a couple of minutes, and maybe as a sub. I can't think of any role for him.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, like you say, maybe in the cups, but he's not going to play, is he? And I mean, as a professional now, he is coming towards the twilight of his career. And as you say, he's got a year left on a contract. It's looking unlikely at this stage he'll get another one as well. So for him, it would probably make sense now to try and move on and continue elsewhere, really, because it does just feel as if he sits here, he won't play for a year, then he'll get released. And I mean, you can be out of sight, out of mind. He's probably better off trying to be proactive and sort himself out now rather than waiting until that point. He's not the type of player, I think, that if he sits on a contract and there'll be people queuing up for him at this stage of his career. So that would make sense. I mean, I'm looking at Ollie Cooper as well, to be honest. I mean, he found game time difficult after Sheehan took the job. Obviously, he played quite a bit in the first part of last season before he got an injury. But I mean, again, there's just so many options in midfield now, isn't there? I know he's more of an attacking midfield player, but you even look at, if a striker comes in, Cullen played in as a 10, for example, last year. He could well be ahead of him in the pecking order there. And we've talked about Waddell, and if we're playing with deeper midfield players, there's so many options there. I mean, he's going to struggle as well, I think, for game time, isn't he?
Yeah, I like Ollie. I think he's a perfect like squad championship player. Really good coming off the bench when you got to defend the lead. He has these runs. I think the start of last season comes to mind where you think, oh my God, like maybe he can become a starter, but it never seems to stick for whatever reason. So, and again, for different reasons to Fulton, obviously because he's much younger, it feels like he's at that stage of his career where he surely wants to be a first team player somewhere, and he's good enough to do that. Like, I don't know if that would be in a championship. It wouldn't shock me if a Charlton or an Oxford, one of the teams that you maybe expect to struggle would take him, a team that doesn't play with the ball much, top end of League One for sure. It feels like he could go to I don't know, a Plymouth or a Huddersfield, a team like that, and be one of the first names on the team sheet. So I think it's, like I said, I got no issue with Ollie sticking around because he 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 can offer you some value, but again, in terms of squad balance and finances and his own personal career, it feels like the right time to move on. I'd just be interested to see, would you sell him or would you loan him out for a year?
It's a good question. I think it really depends on what the options are, doesn't it? I think he's got 3 years left in the contract. He's certainly got 2 years left. So, I mean, it always depends on if we think if we loan him out for a year, then would that help him massively? I think what is the shame for him is that obviously under Russell Martin, he played a reasonable amount, then lost his place just around the end of his tenure. Didn't play much under Michael Duff, and I feel like that season 2 years ago would have been ideal for him to maybe have gone out on loan to League One with hindsight, because he just didn't get much of a look in when we obviously signed so many players. But then last year he got in, did well, and then got unlucky to get injured. It just hasn't worked since. So, I mean, I guess the issue is now it feels like we have the ambition to really progress and to try and get in the playoffs and win promotion. I mean, he's certainly not a Premier League player, is he? And I don't think he ever will be. As you say, squad championship player, yes. So I think it sort of depends. If we get an offer where we think that hits the right value, probably makes sense to sell. But at the same time, if we don't, then maybe loaning him out would be a more sensible option, really. Because certainly the saying that we don't win promotion. I mean, I'm not sure we necessarily expect that. We're just hoping that we can get in the playoffs and see what happens. I mean, then next year one or two might get sold, and if he's had a good loan spell, then he might come back a better player and could be a good option for us then maybe. So I think it's one I probably wouldn't rush into as much. Whereas like Fulton, as I've said, I think we should be looking to go. And I mean, we've talked about Vipotnik. I mean, he's certainly not going to go at this stage, but I mean, if a striker comes in, do you see that as a possibility maybe? Because Sheehan gave his presentation in the fans forum, and he was talking about us, a lot of pressing, closing down. And I mean, that just isn't Vipotnik, is it? So I just don't know how he's going to feature.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I guess despite my reservations about him, having him kind of as a second choice forward doesn't sound like the worst idea in the world. But at the same time, I'm guessing when we signed him, he was put on a good contract. Free transfer would have been a signing on fee. Is that the value we were looking for? And do we see any long-term prospects in him? Are we better having Cullen and Bobby Wales as the kind of backups? I don't know. I would lean towards letting him go. Um, I said I've just lost confidence in him. I'm just not convinced he's good enough to play at this level. He also strikes me as a player who, I don't know, it feels like he needs a run of games, if that makes sense. Like to kind of get into his stride. And if you're not the first choice, you're not likely to get that. So again, it comes down to offers, doesn't it? Like, if somebody turned around now and said, "Oh, we give you 1.5 million, 2 million for him," I would let him go. I wouldn't even think twice about it. So, again, I guess the question is, do in that scenario, do you think Wales and Cullen are good enough to back up a potential new forward?
Yeah, that is the question, isn't it? But I mean, we're not. I think the truth is we're not going to bring in two forwards. I wouldn't have thought. So
I don't think so.
no. So I think we have to just look at it then as things stand. Maybe we can't have. I know Jamie Carragher talks about this a lot. You bring in some players and they're just starters, and some are backup, and then you have others that are, maybe competing for the places. And maybe we'll just have to accept that we bring in someone that is a starter, and then the backup might not be as good. I mean, you could argue the year that we went up to the Premier League. I mean, we had certainly had a good 1 to 11, particularly once we brought Barini in at the end of the season. But throughout a lot of the part of the season, there was the other areas. The depth probably wasn't great. I mean, we had five defenders, and we were lucky that Alan Tate could, cover in certain positions. So that meant that we didn't get exposed there. I mean, in midfield, once Leon came back in, that was a help. So that gave us a bit more, depth there. But I mean, you look at, I mean, out wide, if Dyer or Sinclair didn't play, Van der Gunn was coming in, and I mean, he certainly wasn't at the level. So I think we might just have to accept that striker wise, need to try and bring one in, and the backup might not be as good. But yeah, I think maybe from my point of view as well, I'm looking at we spent a lot of money. If we can recoup some stuff, maybe we need to look at that, because we don't know what the situation will be further down the line. I mean, if there was a chance to make some money back on Vipotnik, maybe we should look to take it. But the only other player I can think of maybe that should go, I'm not sure he will, is Andy Fisher. I mean, remarkably has a year left on his contract. I mean, did play in the League Cup, but I mean, he's never going to be considered as first choice, is he? And he's not going to get another year on a contract. And we did sign a goalkeeper, didn't we? From Barrow, Paul Farman. I mean, maybe he's not going to get in the team at this stage, but Yeah, I mean, do you think Fisher will go? He was on loan last year, wasn't he?
I'm expecting it. I think with Fisher again, he went on loan. It sounds like he did okay, or did well, better than okay from what I read. I admittedly didn't watch any of the games when he was up there, but surely he wants to be playing. Again, it's one that probably we're gonna have to loan him out again or take a loss on him going. I can't see anyone matching. I don't know what his salary is, but you'd think that League One, League Two type of club isn't going to match it. I I got a feeling, and this is just pure gut instinct, that we will loan him out somewhere before the end of the window. But I'd expect another keeper to come in with Marge's contacts, whether that's a young keeper or an experienced keeper. It feels like we can maybe tap into that contact book. I can't see Farnham being number two. No all disrespect to him, but if you look at his career, he feels like a third choice keeper to me at this stage. I know we used to like to collect keepers back in the day, but I do think it's useful to have three in your squad and have that type of spare one who has experience, even if it's not at the level you're at. But um, I would probably say he's going to push to go on loan Fisher, and we'll end up with a different second choice. But I can take or leave it. I'm not a fan of Fisher at all, but and I obviously regret saying this. If Figaro got a big problem, but yeah, better with him as number two than number one.
Yeah, I'm not any long time listener will know I'm not going to disagree with that one. So yeah, we'll touch on the fans forum I think next. I know you weren't there for this, John, but I was. I mean, there were quite a lot of decent things discussed. I mean, Sheehan gave his presentation first, which was mainly about off the ball stuff rather than on the ball, which I wasn't huge on, if I'm honest, because I just don't really think that's us. But look, the fact is Sheehan's in the job, and obviously overall he's done a pretty good job so far, certainly with results. So we can't really say a lot about that. I mean, my instincts were that I didn't particularly like it. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff discussed. I mean, the academy was one of them. The plan is long term for us to go back to Cat One. The club don't want to sell Landor, which I thought they might, if I'm honest, because it would be a way of saving money if that's what we need to do, and I would sort of understand it maybe, but at the same time, I wouldn't want us to do it either. I think that the main thing I took from it was that, wasn't any shirking on questions. Everyone was willing to give what seemed like open and honest answers, and it just felt really as if the club is in safe hands. I mean, look, I'm not saying they're going to do things that maybe are not going, but we might not agree with, but at the same time, it did feel like everything now is coming from a good place from the likes of Gorringe and Montague. So it's reasons to be positive, and as we've already said, transfer wise, we seem to be far better than we have been, and yeah, for once, it feels like there's some optimism and happiness, which is overdue, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the whole feel of the club's different, and it starts with the owners. Like we've actually got owners now with ambition and who are clearly willing to spend money. I know we face PSR challenges and all that stuff, but we've seen the difference this summer compared to what we became used to with if I call it the risk adverse strategy of Levine and Kaplan. I do think the introduction of a Gorringe on the ground running the club is a really good thing. Someone who's been in football for a lot of years. I know he's young, but has worked at a lot of clubs in different roles and with the right type of people. Worked for Trevor Birch at Portsmouth, worked for Paul Barber at Brighton. To use a term that's good stock. So again, I agree with you. I'm going to agree with everything they do. But it does feel we're in a better position with those type of people on the ground running the club. And the Landor thing's interesting. I was expecting it to get sold personally, just from a pure financial point of view. It's with the money that we make and the turnover and so on. It felt like something that was maybe that we could cut or would have to cut. But I just wonder, Steve, if this is maybe the first sign of some confidence in increased commercial revenue from the Snoop and the Luka Modric stuff. I know Gorge, I wasn't there, so I didn't hear what he said, but it felt like he was maybe hinting at that. And if that is the case, then those are the things that we should be looking to protect first. We should only be getting rid of Lando and hurting the academy if we absolutely have to. So if we are on the brink of better commercial revenue, then I would be ecstatic to see that continue. If we go back to Cat One, that would be even better again because we've seen the benefits of that. Um, where you can sell players for big money, it almost pays for itself. You might have to wait a few years for that to happen, but it's not like we don't have the evidence that it won't pay off in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there were hints really of, certain brands wanting to be associated with us now that obviously we've got that bit of clout with Luka Modric and Snoop Dogg. So yeah, that has to be a good thing because we've seen with Wrexham, haven't we, that, what certain things can bring. So, we have spent a lot of money, and I mean, generally it would concern me, I think, because you do wonder about FFP and stuff, and our crowds, and they're not brilliant these days, as we know. The season ticket numbers have gone up, so we're told, which is good. But I mean, the crowd on the weekend wasn't huge. So yeah, I mean, we've got to be optimistic that that is the case. The impression I got was that some deals are going to be expiring next summer, and I guess we may have been able to explore things a little bit sooner, or certainly having discussions about what we do from there. So. Yeah, and I mean, from a Cat One point of view, that would be ideal because this has been a hotbed of football, throughout our history. Probably not so much in recent years as we'd like it to be, but I mean, you look at historically, Swansea have produced some fantastic players. So, I think it would be great if we could go back to Cat One. We have got a good catchment area down here. We have got a good reputation, and as you say, I mean, we it gives you the opportunity sometimes to poach players as well, doesn't it? I mean, Dan James is a player that we poached from Hull and we made an absolute fortune on him, and obviously he did do well for us as well. So it would be
Probably
brilliant, really,
McBurney as
wouldn't it?
well.
Yeah, McBurney, yeah, that's another good example. I mean, let's be fair, at that point when we sold both of those players in the summer of 2019, we were in big trouble
It
if
saved
we
the
weren't
club.
able to do it. Yeah. It did
Saved.
save us really. I mean, we were in big trouble if we didn't do that. So it does show you then, doesn't it, that if you can take players like that, and obviously hopefully we can produce our own from this neck of the woods as well, that we can that would be a huge positive for us. And again, it's a statement of intent, isn't it, that we would be on the right track. So I think they're the things that I took from it, and like it was far better than listening previously to the likes of Coleman and Watson, and where a lot of it was waffle, if we're honest, where they were getting challenged by some tough questions and didn't really have the answers. They certainly didn't have the substance. But now it does feel a little bit different here. So look, for the first time in a while, I think we can be reasonably optimistic. It doesn't mean we're necessarily going to have a brilliant season, but it means that, we're not having to worry about some of the things that we have worried about before, which, can only be a positive, really. So, right, before we wrap up, we'll look ahead to the next few games because I can't see us doing a podcast next week with it being another midweek game. But John, we face Watford this weekend in the early kickoff. Um, they've started reasonably well. We must have, but this is a game where we should have confidence that we can do well in. I'd have thought. I don't see Watford as being a team that's going to be, towards the top at the end of the season. There's always so much turmoil there, isn't there, with changeovers of managers, which has happened again this summer. But I'm not saying that this is a game we're necessarily going to win, but I mean, it doesn't look like a bad fixture for us to continue. Hopefully, with some good form after a good win last weekend.
Yeah, a very difficult team to predict. It feels like every summer there's a turnover of players at Watford, new manager. I've never heard of their manager, so I couldn't offer any insights into him. Obviously, I know they had a win last week, but I think some of their better players will be out as well. So might build, regardless of the opposition, a big frustration for me over the last couple of years is it feels like we follow the same pattern. We start the season very slowly, usually because we haven't put a good squad together. Um, we have a little pickup around October time or September, October time. Then we, have this kind of dip, and then just as we start flirting with maybe a relegation battle, we pick up again. I'd love to start the season and be 10 games in and be in that top six. I know that's still ridiculously early, But it would just be nice to build that momentum, especially with the feel good factor. You mentioned the crowd, Steve. The one thing that will get the fans back is if we start winning a lot of games. And Saturday feels like there's no such thing as a perfect fixture, but to follow up one home win where we played really well, another new signing in the week. Third kit just came out, looks really good. Um, it feels like a game where it'll be a good feeling, a good buzz. Get another win. All this kind of matters. You build that momentum, and Sheffield Wednesday after that. I'm just really hoping we can build on it and start well. It's just tiring, isn't it, when we just start badly every year? That's what it feels like to me anyway. I can't remember. Like it was Cooper was the last time we actually started the season and we're in around the top six after 10 games.
Yeah, I mean, it's hardly a surprise though either, is it, when you look back at those last few years and we've
No.
gone into every single season pretty much, haven't we? Undercooked, other
Yeah.
than maybe the one where we had Duff and Watson, but we were undercooked there because the signings were crap. I mean, numbers wise, we were okay, but yeah, I mean, you look at under Martin, particularly those two summers, we were short of players, and it wasn't a shock then that we started slowly. And last season was similar, wasn't it? I mean, Abdullahi started at Middlesbrough on the wing, and I know you don't want me to remind you of that, but that's where we were at, wasn't it? So it can't be a shock then when you're not firing on all cylinders to start with, and it would be nice, wouldn't it? I mean, I felt like the first two games for us were quite tough, and I think we've got more points than what I was probably hoping for, but I do feel now as if we'll come on to Sheffield Wednesday in a bit. But I mean, this game, then there's that one, then we've got Hull at home. I mean, if you're going to get points and you're going to try and push up the league, you can't be, disappointed with those fixtures. It does give us that opportunity. And as you say, I mean, you reeled off all those positive things. The one thing you didn't say was that it's a bank holiday and the weather's meant to be good, which again makes it, potentially even better. Although I know what it's like. Got all this optimism, everything's looking good, and then it would be typical of the Swans to throw a curveball and to lose and to bring the optimism down slightly. But yeah, I mean, like I say, Watford, they're certainly not one of the stronger teams in the division. It should give us a reasonable chance of building on that win. So let's hope we can do that. I mean, and then before we do go to Sheffield Wednesday, we've got Plymouth at home. As I said earlier, we always seem to get drawn at home, don't we, in the League Cup? And I was quite surprised with Plymouth how badly they've started the season. Don't have a single point to their name yet, and obviously they're in our division last year. Now they did produce quite possibly one of the worst performances I have ever seen from a team at this level not that long ago. So the fact they went down does not shock me, but I didn't think they'd be this bad. I mean, obviously Jamie Patterson has recently gone there, so that's one player that we know. I think Sorinola is still there as well, but I mean, again, that looks like a good fixture for us, doesn't it? It'll give us a chance maybe to give the likes of Bobby Wales a start. I mean, maybe Stamenic will have his first start in there. Casey can come into the back. Sam Parker again, having a chance. And you'd like to think we might be able to do that and still get through to the next round.
Yeah, that Plymouth game, the Lewis O'Brien goal, I think is one of the worst defensive goals conceded in the Football League in the last 10 years. Because if you watch it, he runs for about 40 yards and he's constantly looking around as if to say, is anyone actually going to follow me? And when he heads it in, there's no one near him. It was bizarre. They were dreadful. They're just in Club Plymouth because they obviously came up the leagues and gained a reputation quite quickly of being quite a well-run outfit. Incredible support. Their away support is amazing. They're like us in a way. They're out on a limb. But looking at it now, I think some of their fans are starting to question that because they obviously had Ryan Lowe as manager and then Schumacher kind of built off what Lowe was doing. And it's really fallen apart since then. I think Muslich looked a decent manager. So it feels like it's maybe been more manager led than, good structure. But I mean, 4 defeats out of 4. Tom Cleverley just looks miserable. Um, but the exciting thing for me is what you said, Steve. We can give some of these players game time, but I think the lineup will still look good. You're looking at Vidal playing Bobby Wales, probably a start for Stamenic. I can't see him starting Saturday. I think Keelan Casey's looked good in the games he's played so far. Sam Parker had a really good game. It's I'm looking forward to going down and watching it. That will be spoilt when we lose 1-0 on Saturday. But yeah, it's for a League Cup game. That's the beauty of actually having a squad that's been properly assembled. That with these type of games, I think are a little bit more exciting when you got, first team players who are not currently in the first team. You get a chance to have a look at them. But I think we'll win. I'd be surprised if we don't.
Yeah, it does look like a good fixture for us. I mean, when it came out of the hat, I was thinking, oh, that might be reasonably challenging here because I thought Plymouth would be pushing towards the upper parts of League One. But obviously that hasn't been the case at this stage. So but yeah, I think a cup run would be nice as well, wouldn't it? I mean, we haven't played a Prem side for a little while now. Certainly, I know we did during COVID a little bit and stuff, but I think that would be good because it has been a little while. There must be quite a few fans now going that, maybe weren't going in the Premier League days, and it would be nice for them maybe to get us an opportunity to play a side like that. I mean, from my point of view, the dream draw would be Tottenham away probably if we were to get through because I haven't been there. But I think any sort of Prem side would be decent, wouldn't it? I think it would be, a good opportunity as well for us to pit ourselves against them. So I certainly would be up for a cup run at this stage, wouldn't you?
Yeah, don't know. I was watching the draw and it was still regionalised, and as the balls were coming out, I was like, "Oh, Cardiff are still in here. Cardiff are still in here," and I was half expecting it. I did not want that. Um, but yeah, it would be good. Maybe get on TV, like you said, pit yourself against a Premier League side who'll probably play a weakened team. So maybe a chance to go through. All that could only add to the good feeling. We keep mentioning it. Everyone keeps mentioning it. That type of thing. It's just a snowball effect. So, and I think it'll be good for because we do have a bit of squad depth. The more games we play in the cups, the more game time we can give out, the more time the new lads, particularly some of the foreign players, have to adjust. It's I don't see any negative to it at the moment if we keep going.
Yeah, definitely. I think it could be that could be a good thing, and it could improve our coffers. Good draws, obviously, it brings, decent crowd, potential TV money, and look, all these things are good. And if everyone's got to start somewhere, I mean, if you get a big side, it might attract people who've never been down before. If they were to enjoy it, then look, you're in a position then where they might want to go again and then be like me and you who went for the first time 30 odd years ago and, you know, have been going avidly ever since. So, everyone's got to start somewhere. So just finally then, before we wrap it up for this week, Sheffield Wednesday. I mean, I've got a lot of sympathy for their fans. Obviously, they're going through a tough time at the moment. Club has been run in a really bad way. I mean, they only had approval for one of their stands, I think, to open the other day. But I mean, they lost 3-0 at home to Stoke, a renowned basket case at this level. I mean, obviously they've beaten us God knows how many times. I'm sick to death of Stoke, but we can't be going up there with sympathy, really, can we? I mean, it looks like a very good time, I would say, to play them, and we need to try and turn the screw, don't we?
Yeah, it's interesting because when I saw their starting lineup at Leicester, it was better than what I was expecting it to be, but absolutely nothing on the bench. They did well at Leicester, and actually Saturday's game, I've got this weird thing where my first thing I do Sunday morning is look at all the stats from all the games, every football league game. Um, and it didn't look like a 3-0 game. Like Stoke scored very early, I think pretty much straight from kickoff. So I think they've played better than maybe people were expecting, but ultimately they haven't got the results. So 2 games in, it does feel like a tall order for them. Like I said, I got sympathy for them, of course. But for us, I know it doesn't always work out this way. If we're serious about wanting to challenge the top 6 this year, getting them now, we have to be thinking that's a win. We do. We gotta think that's a game we're gonna go up there, take it to them, and just take the 3 points. Not that straightforward, I know, but they feel like they're gonna be cannon fodder. I hope that's not the case for their sake. Brilliant club, massive club. Don't want that to happen. Want them to be competitive, but I don't see where the hope is coming from. It's going to be really difficult.
Yeah, it does feel like that, doesn't it? I mean, Sheffield Wednesday, to be fair, were in a bad situation on the pitch anyway a couple of years ago when they somehow managed to survive. I mean, it was quite a miraculous recovery really in the second half of the season, but just feels like they're really up against it here. It is a proud club, a great club, certainly a bigger team than what we've been. When we were young, they were a mainstay really of the top division. Not been in there for a long time now, but yeah, it just feels like they're in a situation, and we're in this on the face of it does look like a good time to play them. So we need to try and make hay, really. I mean, so I'll end on a little question here then. So if I said to you, we're going to get 4 points from the next two games, how would you feel about that? Do you feel like we need to be aiming for six? I mean, I do think six could be realistic. I mean, four wouldn't be a bad return, would it? But, like you
Yeah,
say, if we're targeting to really be towards the top, I mean, is six realistic?
yeah, it's realistic. Look, it's the championship, and you know, I think we can get six. If we got four, I wouldn't be disappointed. Also, it depends how we play. You know, yes, I'm probably contradicting what I said earlier in that I'm bored of starting slowly. So I do want the results. But at the same time, if we put in really positive performances and the results just don't go our way, that can give you confidence that those results will simply come. So I love six. I think I'd be happy with four. But yeah, the performances really matter to me. Like I said, we've had two very different performances in the league, very different game plans. Middlesbrough was way too negative. Had no issue with how we approached the game on Saturday. So I just want to see that again. So but let's go for six. Why not? I said the fixtures are there for us to do it.
Yeah, I think they are as well. I mean, I'm not saying that we're going to do it. I mean, it is an unpredictable league, but like we're saying, if we really got ambitions to try and get up there, these are two decent fixtures. We need to try and make it count. I think if we don't, be a shame if we didn't get 4 points at least. I think we need to try and build some momentum here. So we're, going into the international break, it would be really nice if we're, certainly in the top 10. I mean, if we could be higher, great, given the fixtures that we've got. Because I mean, you look after the international break, then it does look a bit tricky. I know we've got the likes of Birmingham away. There's Leicester, I think, in there as well. So there will be some trickier ones there. So if we can make these ones count here against two teams that we'd like to think we're going to finish above, then that would be great, really. But well, a nice positive podcast for this week, which is refreshing. Long may it continue. Let's hope the next time we come together that we're positive again. But a big thanks to John for joining me this week to discuss all things Swansea City. We will be back soon. Like I said, we won't be back next week. Then I am off to Kazakhstan with Wales, so I'll try and squeeze one in maybe before that, but I'm not convinced that I'll have time. So by the way, we will be back soon. And as ever, thank you very much for joining us. Bye for now.